Hey everyone, welcome back to Drive Protected. My name is Eric. Today's video we got something a little bit different. Coleton from Out of Spec Detailing channel, I'll have his channel linked in the description of this video, recently just did a video talking about tips for finding the right paint protection film installer. And in this video, he has a brand new Kia EV9 in his shop that he did some paint correction and ceramic coating on, but the car had paint protection film installed on it by a previous paint protection film installer. In this video, Coleton goes over the paint protection film install that was done by these professional installers. I don't know who they are, so I'm not going to be naming any names because I don't honestly know who installed this. I just watched this video this morning, and although Coleton is not really a huge fan of paint protection film, and he makes that clear in this video, he does a very good job of explaining his reasons why he's not a huge fan of paint protection film. And I watched the whole video this morning in its entirety, and I thought it was really, really well done. Now, if you've been watching anything on this channel, you know that us here at Drive Protected, we're huge fans of paint protection film, and I think every vehicle should have paint protection film on it. So obviously there's going to be some differing opinions, and I'm going to share my thoughts and feelings and my opinions on this video. This is the first time I've ever done a reaction type of video before, so it might suck. It might be really good. You guys might laugh. You guys might hate it. I don't know. And yeah, Coleton, if you're watching this, great job on the video. Huge fan of everything that you do over there at Out of Spec Detailing. And yeah, also a huge fan of the Out of Spec channels. Great content. Yeah, so let's get into it. I am definitely a fish out of water here. I've never done anything like this, so we're going to hit record on the video right now, and let's get into it.
Now, if you've been a viewer of the Out of Spec Detailing channel here, you know I'm not a huge fan of paint protection film. I have my own reasons for it. I made multiple videos on it. We're not talking about that today. What we are talking about is if you decide to outweigh the pros and cons of doing paint protection film and you decide, hey, it's right for me, it's right for my car, and right for my use case, how do you go about finding a paint protection film installer that just does an amazing job? Honestly, 9 times out of 10, jobs that I see done with ClearBra are horrible. It's those 1 out of 10, those really, really high-end shops that do an unbelievable job to where you're literally searching to see if the car has paint protection film on any given panel. This Kia EV9 in front of me is not that way. This is...
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there at the 52-second mark of his video, and he makes a really good point there. You know, paint protection film installs, when you've done your paint protection film installation properly and your customer comes to pick it up, they should not be able to see the paint protection film on the vehicle. If they got a partial front end where like the first 18 to 24 inches of the hood are done, good chance they're going to be able to see that line across the hood and fenders. But if you're doing a significant amount of the vehicle, such as like full front end or even a full wrap, the paint protection film should not be noticeable at all. If you've been doing a paint protection film install on that vehicle and you've been wrapping all your edges, there should be very, very minimal places on the vehicle where you can see seams, relief cuts, and that type of stuff. So yeah, totally. Paint protection film installs, if they're done properly, you shouldn't even see them on the vehicle. So let's continue.
One of the worst paint protection film jobs
one of the worst he's seen. So that's saying something. So let's see what else we got here.
Seen in a very, very long time. This thing came to me to get a full paint correction with some factory defects, and we had film put on it beforehand, and man, oh man, this was just installed. Nearly every edge is lifting. There's silvering marks everywhere. There's install errors. There's glue lines. There's contamination in the film.
So I'm not going to sit here and justify why any of those things are showing up under the paint protection film that was installed on this Kia. He's mentioning silvering, adhesive lines, glue lines, that type of thing. It's a black vehicle, and as a professional paint protection film installer myself, black is one of the hardest color vehicles to wrap paint protection film on. The reason being, if you don't have your solutions perfect, if you haven't prepped your vehicle surface properly, if you don't stretch the PPF properly, it's very easy to put all kinds of stretch marks and adhesive disturbances in the film. So those, over time, some of them can fade a little bit, not 100%. I've never seen a stretch mark line fade completely. I've seen it fade a little bit, but yeah, on a black vehicle, those things, unfortunately, they are rather amplified, and it makes the vehicle, it can make the install look a lot worse than what it actually is. So I'm not sitting here trying to justify why this whoever installed this paint protection film could let that out their door, because honestly I wouldn't have. But black is hard, and black is a very, very prone color to having those marks. So let's continue.
This is the worst case scenario. So we're going to take a look around this vehicle, see the issues associated with it, but then we're going to talk about how you weed out those shops. How do you walk into a detail shop or a paint protection film shop and say, this is who I want to install my film? I have a lot of knowledge on this. I was a certified XPEL installer in the automotive industry years and years ago. I've been detailing for 10 plus years now. So a lot of that insight's gonna come down on how to select the right paint protection film installer. So welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. Let's jump into it. So let's jump into this EV9. Again, this is really the use case of, hey, I've decided I want paint protection film on my vehicle. How do I find shops and avoid cars that look like this? So first off, let's walk around this car and see what's going on. Now, if you guys are wondering what my experience is with paint protection film, again, I was a certified installer for XPEL paint protection film, probably one of the top end films out there in the automotive industry. I went down to San Antonio, did the training course, and honestly installed for about a year or so afterwards and really fell out of love with the product. I'm not going to talk again about the issues that I see with paint protection film and why I've decided not to install it, but merely we're going to talk about how to avoid getting a job done like this, because this is so frustrating. This is a brand new car. I do say brand new. It has 2,000 miles on it, and it had film installed. Number one, that is your first issue. If you're going to get paint protection film installed, you need to get it done as soon as possible. Now, what happens if you get rock chips during the couple 100 miles at times before getting film installed is you're going to get a rock chip, and those rock chips are magnified once film goes over it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Nonetheless,
okay, so I'm going to pause it there at the 3-minute and 20-second mark, and I agree 100% with what he's saying. If you're picking up a brand new vehicle and you're going to get paint protection film installed on it, the best time to do it is before you take delivery of it. Hopefully the dealership you're buying the vehicle from can refer you to a reputable paint protection film installer, and you can get that PPF installed on your vehicle before you even have a chance to take it home. With today's day and age of automotive paint being so thin compared to what it was just 10 years ago, paint can take rock damage. Paint can just get damaged so much easier. And with this being a black vehicle, if the customer were to get a rock chip in the paint, really the only way to touch that up and make it look absolutely perfect is to respray the panel. And Coleton is 100% right when he says that it just acts as, it like amplifies the damage. So black is, or any really dark color for that matter, is absolutely horrible at touching up stone chips on and putting PPF over it. It will make it look worse than if you were to not get paint protection film. So yeah, ultimately the best time to get PPF installed in your vehicle is when it's brand new.
this owner decided before it came in for paint correction, I really need to get film on this particular area here. Now, Kia EV9s are notorious for these areas cracking. Essentially, there's some lights that essentially show through the paint here, and this is a very hard plastic, and a lot of owners have been complaining small rocks hitting these and completely cracking this very, very hard plastic grille. So he decided, hey, I'm gonna put film on here. While I'm at it, let's just throw film on the front end of this. Now, he paid about...
So, customer has obviously had the right or the best intentions with getting the paint protection film installed, especially knowing that that area right along the front can crack over time. Yeah, that's the thing with most of these electric vehicles is they don't have grills and radiators, and they're just very, very flat surfaces that are just magnets for rocks. So kudos to the owner for being proactive in getting the paint protection film installed. Obviously should have had it done from day one, but you know, he got it done. I'll just say that. Let's continue.
$2,000 give or take on this. Now, realistically, it sounds cheap. The workmanship, of course, that is on this particular...
$2,000 for a full front end and rear bumper on this vehicle. Given how complex that front end is, it's not just a flat surface. It's a flat surface with multiple pieces, parking sensors, and all kinds of curves and relief cuts that are needed for your installation to be successful. That $2,000 is cheap.
Vehicle, I wouldn't even pay for it. Like, it is truly terrible. But realistically, if you're going to a very, very good shop, this should be about $2,500 to $3,000 for a full hood, full front bumper, full fenders, mirrors, A-pillars, door handles, and this also has the entire rear bumper done. So I would say $2,500 to $3,000 is very reasonable. This one being $2,000, yikes. So let's just walk around this and let me show you some issues here. So first off, on the hood, can you see this in here? This line? That, my friends, is called a glue line. This is basic stuff to where if you are a new installer, this should not be happening on vehicles. It is a serious problem. Essentially what happens is when you have to reset the film, you pick it up, you get some glue that basically sticks there, and if you don't...
So what Coleton's talking about here with this glue line, and I'll explain how these glue lines happen. So the paint protection film installer will have been installing the paint protection film, and I'm going to assume they probably started at the back of the hood and worked their way towards the front, and they probably weren't happy with their alignment on the front, so they figured they would lift the PPF up and kind of just readjust the film. Now, when paint protection film has started to set in place, whenever you lift the film up, in this situation, they would have been better off lifting the entire hood off the paint, the hood pattern, I should say. They should have lifted that right off the paint, sprayed it down with their slip solution, and then continued on with their installation. By stopping where they did, that's when you create those adhesive lines or lift lines, as Coleton's talking about here. So what those lift lines are is it's basically you're taking your adhesive and you're breaking it, and then you're going to have that line right there. So even though he was able to install it and get it down, there's still going to be a line right wherever they stop lifting up. So that's why I say you should have just lifted the whole hood up and redone it. On a black vehicle, 100% this hood should have never gone out the door as a professional installer.
Do the process properly, then you get glue lines. So we have...
You can see it. It's kind of zigzagged right across the hood. If you look inside the lights, see if my mouse can point this out here. You can see it right over here. The line starts over here by the back of the headlight, kind of moves its way diagonally towards the front, and then it kind of zigzags right across the hood. That, yeah, they should have just lifted the whole hood up. Good lighting in your shop, by the way, Coleton. I'm kind of jealous.
A glue line here. We also have it all the way over here on the hood. You may be going, who cares? Honestly, in person, this looks absolutely terrible. When the customer dropped it off to me here at the shop, he goes, gosh, what the heck is this line? And I was explaining to him, that, my friend, is a glue line. And he asked, will this go away? Absolutely not. That is permanently in the film there. That is...
I would say once that vehicle's had a chance to sit underneath some really, really hot sunny days, some of that will fade a little bit, but probably 70-80% of that is going to be there permanently.
Due to install error. Now here on the other side, it seems like they were having issues stretching the film over this hood. Now the Kia EV9, I will say, does not seem like an easy car to put film on. Lots of very angular surfaces, lots of curves, lots of body lines. This can be very, very complicated. But look at over here. Look at these glue lines here. And again, this was done a week ago, so I would think any sort of air bubbles, water pockets, anything like that should be completely gone. And what's in here now is going to stay in here. Look at this edge here. What is going on? How does that leave a shop like that? It is true.
So in a situation like this, and I'm not going to sit here and say that the customer or that the paint protection film installer shouldn't have redone this hood. They definitely should have. But in a situation like this, where let's say, for example, on any color vehicle for that matter, if you are going to take and lift up the PPF on the hood, you've got this body line right over here that runs from the front all the way to the back, where if you lift up the PPF and you stop on that body line instead of stopping right over here, you can take this mark and you can basically make that mark run right in line with the body line here, and it becomes much, much easier to hide. Ironically, that is something that I was taught when I took my paint protection film training with Expel as well too. And I personally have used that not to hide lines, but anytime I have an installation where, let's say I find a piece of debris underneath the film, I'm going to lift the film up and then spray my slip solution in it, but I'm not lifting the film up just past where the debris is. I'm lifting it up right into this body line. That way, should I run the chance of any kind of lines or adhesive disturbances being left behind, they're hidden in a body line and they're much harder to see. Now, a trained professional detailing eye like Coleton would still see it, but 99% of customers would never see it. So I'm not sitting here trying to say, hey, let's just hide things from customers. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying from a paint protection film installer standpoint, if you have to lift up a hood and you don't want to lift up the whole hood, or you shouldn't have to because of one small piece of contamination, lift it up to the first body line there and then continue with your installation. So it's gonna be a long video. I'm 6 minutes in, and yeah, I hope you guys are still enjoying this and you're still with me.
Truly sad to see this, honestly. Very, very sad. Then you get down here, we have a bunch of silvering marks, bunch of stretch marks in here, silvering marks, like not a good situation. Again, moving all the way down here on the hood, you can see this glue line runs all the way down to about this area here. So that's a huge issue. Now, you're not going to see this exactly on every single car, but do I think this is an acceptable way to give a customer back a vehicle? Absolutely not. I don't know how this shop is sending cars out like this and thinking that this stuff is okay. Now, moving up here to basically the A pillar. Up here, we of course have a large bubble. We also have stretch marks in this area, as you can see, glue lines in here. We also...
So right here at the 7 minute and 5 second mark, Coleton's pointing out at the back corner of the hood, glue lines and whatnot. This is personally one of my biggest pet peeves when installing paint protection film is I don't do templates on hoods unless I'm doing a partial hood or unless I'm wrapping like a full hood on a vehicle that has a very flat hood with next to no curves or body lines. I'm always going to be bulk installing the wrap, at least on the hood. Because this is a template, they will have had to stretch to get the paint protection film to line up in that back corner there, and the film will have bit and started to set in place before it was properly aligned in that corner, and that's why we have those marks. When you're doing a bulk paint protection film install, you can take a much larger sheet of film, you can lay it down over the top of the hood or on top of the panel, squeegee it down, and then you don't have to worry about tons of manipulation and stretching to get the film to line up. So personally, on full hoods, I'm a huge fan of doing bulk PPF installs for this exact reason, because you want it to look good.
So have stretch marks in there, not looking very good whatsoever. Now
that moisture bubble, unfortunately, it is common for moisture bubbles to pop up once the vehicle has left the paint protection film shop. In a situation like that, you just take a diabetic's needle and you just poke the very side of that hole, and you should be able to get that down, and that should, for the most part, clear up and not be noticeable.
People, of course, pay extra to have film wrapped around edges. We're going to talk.
You shouldn't have to pay extra to have paint protection film wrapped around your edges. If you're going to a professional installer to get PPF installed, they should be just quoting you with wrapped edges. Any paint protection film installer that does not do wrapped edges and makes you pay extra for it, I don't have much to say. If you can't wrap your edges, don't be installing paint protection film.
About this in the future when we're going through how do we actually pick a shop that does a very good job. Edges are going to be something you need to figure out, because if you have edges that lift up and fail, like, I don't know, this entire area that has literally already popped within, that was a day afterwards. Actually, when the car showed up here at the shop, this entire edge had already lifted. And that's what we're going to get into. It's embarrassing. This is just truly, truly embarrassing. You can see this entire edge between this fender flare and the actual fender here has completely popped up. Now, what the issue with popped edges on paint protection film are, when they actually lift up, there's of course adhesive behind there. You drive your car, what do you think happens? You get dirt under there. Now all these edges are turning brown. They're getting nasty grime in them. And what they actually start to do is work their way into the film and start pulling more and more edges. So any edges that aren't sat down properly are just going to fail. Same thing going on over here. This entire edge, it's very hard to pick up on camera.
Coleton's 100% right on this. Anytime that there's a paint protection film edge that pops up, and dirt starts to get behind it, it will never sit down. It will start to turn brown, and it will look really, really bad on your vehicle, especially if it's a white vehicle or a light colored vehicle. It will look really bad. And you're probably wondering, well, why are they popping up? Well, they're not. Well, they're popping up because whoever installed the paint protection film did not take the proper time and the proper steps to do their post heating, or is what I call insurance work, before letting that vehicle go out the door. So taking a heat gun around to all your edges, making sure that those edges are down before you send the vehicle out the door is a good way to manage and maintain a good reputation with your paint protection film installs. And it's a good way to make sure that that vehicle is not coming back into your shop again, unless the customer wants to get more paint protection film added to it. Another big thing to prevent this is keep the vehicle overnight. So I'm gonna do my best to not get too terribly long-winded here, but in a situation where I'm gonna do a full front end on a vehicle, full front end will take me 3 to 4 hours to install, and that's with wrapped edges and everything like that. But I'm keeping that vehicle overnight. I'm not letting the customer pick that up until the next day, because I'm gonna wrap those edges, and when I come into work the next morning, I'm gonna go around all those edges to make sure that they're down and they're not gonna pop up. This is what you do to make sure that, one, you're preserving your reputation. Number two, your installs are just going to continue to look better when they're out on the street and they're out there for years on end. So, yeah, take your time, post heat it before you send it out the door. I would argue that the art of paint protection film installation, it's a really, really good art to learn, but the most important part about it is your post paint protection film install work, and that's post heating, because you need to keep the film on the vehicle. So let's continue. It's a really good video. Hope you guys are enjoying it.
Very apparent in person, has fully lifted. Same with up here. Now just looking here at the headlight, this corner completely failed already. It's overlapping here. You can see that white mark there should be sitting down there properly. Now look at the headlight all the way down. That has all lifted, and as you can already see, there's already dirt in the film, and this is a week old. That entire edge has completely failed on the headlight. And just again, looking in here, failed edges. We have more failed edges here that are already starting to lift. This is a very, very frustrating situation. So what do you do from this case on? Honestly, a lot of this could be trimmed. Now, a shop that is installing stuff like this, I would never take this back to have them go in and trim this, because essentially what they did on this car was used a pre-cut kit. And with the pre-cut kits, if you don't get them installed properly,
So one of the big things about pre-cut templates for paint protection film installs is to prevent you from bulking the installs. When you bulk a paint protection film install, it means you have to trim off the excess paint protection film around that panel that you just installed, which means running a knife along the entire perimeter of that panel, or in this situation, the entire front end. We're only 9.5 minutes into this video, and there's trimming that needs to take place on every panel. And with it being black, yeah, I don't blame Coleton one bit for not wanting to go back to get these people to trim it, because if you can't install a pre-cut template properly, you probably don't have the experience to use a knife on a vehicle without running the risk of scratching paint.
basically making sure all of your edges are lined up, or not, you know, having edges that are going to wrap around. Now you're cutting short, now it's not working properly, and I would never have somebody who's going to leave glue lines and imperfections like this cut on my car. That is a big no-go. We'll talk about the difference between bulk wrapping and wrapping with templates. It's a big, big difference. Now just looking here on the headlight again, so we have a seam that goes here, that entire edge has lifted. We've also got contamination in the film there, which is a huge thing throughout this entire PPF job. I'm just looking here at the hood. Contamination, 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 contamination. It is literally everywhere. I can just point out spots. It's of course going to be very hard with reflections on this. If you were in person, it looks absolutely terrible. Now, contamination is due to a clean working environment. So that's again going to be another thing we're going to be talking about with finding a good installer. Just moving down here, the entire bumper, that whole edge has completely failed. Now if I come down here to this front bumper, a few things going on. That not sitting properly, even sort of. That has fully lifted, already has dirt in it. And then you come to here. Yeah, that doesn't look quite too good, does it? So the whole edge that they were supposed to be essentially wrapping underneath that has completely popped. Now this, yeah, I can just feel the film there. Then you get to edges like this, or deep recesses. That has already failed. This whole edge has already failed. Then you come up to areas like this. What is going on?
In this situation right over here at the 11-minute 14-second mark, this just shows how little care and effort was put into making sure that the PPF install was done right, because that's not uncommon to have that when you're doing a PPF install, because there's a relief cut right there. You can see how the film, there's a bit of a slit there. That relief cut is there by design, and all they would have had to do is heat this up with a heat gun and press it down, and that would never pop up again. So they truly just installed the film and sent it out the door, which is very unfortunate.
This is absolutely horrendous. This is just epitome of slap some film on here, shove the car out the door, and see you next time.
Agreed.
This entire edge here, all lifted, that entire recess. This is not easy to do. I'm not saying this is an easy paint protection film job like a Tesla Model 3 or something like that. The EV9 is no joke, but this kind of stuff is stuff you learn day one installing film.
Agreed.
You can see here, we already have edges lifting. Around here, we have their butt joint they did already lifting. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this is already lifting, because everything is lifting. This whole edge up here, same deal. Then you get to up here. Yeah.
So these, before he even has a chance to say anything, these templates where the film is so tiny that, like, it's such a small piece of film, it is very, very, very hard to get that to lay down perfectly and then to squeegee that down. Number one, you need a very tiny squeegee. Number two, you need to have a ton of patience. And number three, you got to be very tedious when you're working with the film on such a long strip that's probably 6 to 8 inches in length and maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. I'm not going to sit here and try and defend the paint protection film installer, because that's not what I'm trying to do in this video. But that would be a pain to install that personally. Yeah, there's nothing fun about it.
So this basically entire piece is very, very thin. Of course, I understand, okay, great, we want protection there. I'm not sure how this is ever going to stick. So you can basically see that entire thing is going to fail at one point. Then you come to an area like this over here. We have bubbles here, we have bubbles here. This edge is lifted, contamination, rock chip, contamination, all sorts of little glue lines going on here. It just looks absolutely terrible. Now, again, down here, you can see all of these little spots. I would assume those would go away, but they just haven't. I'm not sure exactly why. It looks completely terrible. Now here, see that big white dot there? Again, the camera's having a very hard time focusing. That is a rock chip, and instead of, you know, filling it with basically touch-up paint, making it try to look better, they just threw film over it. Now that is completely magnified. I saw this before the car had paint protection film on it, and it did not look bad at all. The problem is you basically get an air pocket there and it makes it bright white. Now that's not an issue per se on white vehicles, but on a black car it sticks out like a sore pimple. Now looking up here at this headlight, like, this is just, how do you install film like this? So what you can see happened here is the headlight was, of course, a template. They didn't get the template far enough over here to this leading edge, so they had a bunch of extra hang off over here. They tried to get this to sit down, that entire edge popped. But you can see now we have a gap of, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch there that it's not protected. Then you see stuff like this. That is the film popped up because they didn't get it properly in. Every single place I look at this, like I'm just looking at this area, these are all silvering marks in here. All of this, the entire edge has popped. Like, this is just embarrassing. And it's very, very frustrating as a detailer who spends 30, 40 hours on a car, paint correcting, compounding, polishing, you know, ceramic coating, cleaning absolutely everything. To have a shop come through and do work like this, it just brings down everybody in the industry.
Agreed. A paint protection film installer that does not take the time and effort to hone in their craft from every aspect of their craft, they do the industry no favors.
The issue is, you see a car like this out parked in, I don't know, Walmart parking lot or in front of Costco. You walk by it and you start seeing all these bubbles in it, and you start noticing, oh, that's clear bra. That made, you know, have somebody walk up to that car and go, hey, I've been thinking about clear bra, and they look around this and just go, are you kidding me? This looks absolutely terrible. Now, just looking over here on mirrors, we have silvering marks everywhere. These are permanently installed into the film here. This is basically when you're installing, you don't have enough solution on here, you get the glue to stick, basically your hands, while you're stretching it over this area, and it creates.
Mirrors are difficult to install, to say the least, especially when you're doing pre-cut templates. I personally like to bulk install most of my mirrors for this exact reason. Paint protection film, the PPF kits are designed to be a tad bit smaller than the actual panel itself. but they're also designed to be stretched into place. So if you stretch it properly, you'll get perfect coverage. The downside of that is with how much stretch you need to do and how curved the panel is, or the mirror in this situation, yeah, you run the risk of adhesive disturbances and stretch marks in the film. And on a black vehicle, it doesn't look good. So yeah, I totally agree with Coleton on this one, that it doesn't look good. And personally, you could get away without protecting the mirrors with paint protection film, and that hurts as a paint protection film installer to say that, but mirrors have a high fail rate, and I would say out of all the panels that I struggle with, mirrors is by far the worst to install on.
Dates those marks. Again, this is something a shop should know how to do if they're installing film. I just look at this car, and every single panel that
Nice Porsche in the background
I look at is just absolutely terrible. Edges lifting, silvering marks all over it, glue lines everywhere. It is just so unbelievably frustrating. And you know, for somebody who wants PPF and says, again, okay, I'll give my opinion here. If you think this is a good job, why spend $2,000 on this? Just get some rock chips on the front of your car and save the money, because this looks absolutely terrible. You can see the edge up here. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, when Coleton's saying, like, why spend the $2,000 on it and get some stone chips on it, and I'll dig into this a little bit later in the video. It's paint protection film, not paint perfection film. And this is oftentimes going to come down to the company that's selling the paint protection film. Don't sell it like something that's absolutely perfect. At the end of the day, it is not something that's absolutely perfect. It's not optically a clear paint protection film. It is a clear plastic with an adhesive layer and a self-healing top coat and potentially a hydrophobic top coat on it. It's protection film, not perfection film. And this is ultimately, as well, is also going to come down to the customer and their wants and needs. Would you rather deal with some adhesive disturbances in your film, or would you rather have a bunch of unsightly rock chips that are not fun to look at? Personally, I'm going to go the paint protection film route, but that's just me. And I understand Coleton's difference of opinion here, and I respect that. We all have a right to our opinion on that. And I hate stone chips, and that my dislike of stone chips is why Drive Protected is here today. So let's continue.
It's not even sitting perfect. You have all sorts of weird marks here in the film. Looks absolutely terrible. Door handles, come over to here. The entire edge has lifted on the top and the bottom. Same with back here, lifting. Now this is just down to knowing how film works. Basically, think about it this way. If you have a rolled edge like this and you put film here on this edge, it's going to naturally want to pop. So you either need to cut it short or you need to go farther over that rounded edge. That is basic principles to installing paint protection film. It looks really bad when you do it improperly. Now back here, this entire area had been done. And no, I will say this is not an easy to install paint protection film area. I can already see a ton of issues.
I personally have never installed PPF on an EV9, and I look at that rear bumper and I would agree that looks to be a time-consuming, tedious, difficult bumper to install on.
Silvering marks here, those are permanently into the film. This entire edge has completely popped. Again, I apologize, it's very, very hard for the camera to focus here. That edge is popped as they've done a seam there. Same thing on this side. You have fingers lifting there. That entire edge is blown out. More marks, and also literally, like, I don't know, almost a quarter of an inch there from the actual bumper. This recess edge, film lifting there, all lifting right here. Like, this is just frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. You can see around the tow hook there, the entire edge completely lifted. So now that you guys have an idea of what a very, very poorly installed piece of paint protection film looks like, let's talk about what kind of shops you need to look for and how to accredit those shops. So now we're on the quest to figure out how you find a paint protection film shop that's going to do a good job. This is a question that I get all the time, and it is a little frustrating for me because it's hard to answer. So I get the question, hey, I'm in Florida, what shop do you recommend for PPF or ceramic coatings or paint corrections? Or I'm up in the Pacific Northwest, where do you recommend I take my car there? And I just go, honestly, I have no clue. The reality is Instagram versus reality is a huge problem in the detailing industry.
I could not agree more with that. When you see people's paint protection film installations on social media, everything always looks perfect. There never looks like there's any mistakes that are done. And that's the unfortunate part about it, is that, you know, to the untrained customer who's just in the market for buying a brand new vehicle and thinking about getting like the perfect 1-2 combination of paint protection film and ceramic coatings for protection, they're going to see these shops work and think, oh my goodness, this is amazing, they do such a great job. But and I know Coleton touches on it here, but I think we're all of us installers, we're all kind of guilty of making the perfect post to make everything look perfect. So don't vet your shops based on what you see on social media.
The shop who did this Kia EV9, great Instagram. They have pictures constantly coming up of them wrapping cars, washing cars, coating cars, buffing cars, putting film on cars. And it's like, wow, this looks quite reasonable. The issue is when you see these shops, they're just doing quick marketing. Now, what I want to kind of further make an anecdote here is the car here looks perfect, does it not? In this frame. This is a photo you'd see all the time, and I'm just as guilty as this when I post photos on cars. The issue is the car looks great, but once you get into it, it looks terrible. So a lot of the times you'll see these shops who do very, very nice work, walk around with lights showing reflections in the sun. They'll, especially on paint protection film jobs, show the edges, show how they do edges, and really kind of walk through. They're not just going like, hey, here's the car, it's done. They're walking up to the car. You're seeing slow B-roll of them looking at edges and seeing how things are fitting. Now, if you were to do that to this car, you would never take your car to that shop. So that's why a lot of those shops don't do that. Now, are these shops thinking that this is a great job? Maybe, and that's kind of frustrating because honestly, like I explained, somebody thinking about doing, you know, paint protection film or a vinyl wrap done by this company, they walk up to the car, they go, wow, the vinyl is peeling everywhere. The PPF looks absolutely terrible on this. I'm never doing that to my car. It's funny, you walk through any basically grocery store parking lot, you'll see a line down the hood with faded yellow clear bra on it. Yes, that's older film, but this is what I'm getting at. You kind of start feeling those issues. So I would definitely look at the shop's Instagram. And second, look at their website. Go in and see how they've designed their page. Is it a basic, just throw something online there, have no photos, have stock images on there? Or is it them that actually has them working, talking about their backstory, and most importantly, talking about the brands that they actually use? If you go and say, hey, I'm gonna look at this shop, what is their paint protection film series? Names listed, no SunTech, no XPEL, none of the top end films out there. What are they actually using? So that would be the third thing. Talk to them. If you want to just give them a call and say, hey, I'm looking to get paint protection film done. What kind of film do you guys actually use? Now, I have absolutely seen this where the guys go, we use XPEL paint protection film, we use SunTech. You go into the back of their shop, there is not a...
I think what Coleton's talking about here is great. What kind of film are they using? I'm gonna push back on this one a little bit here. When it comes to paint protection film, it's not really what kind of film the person's using, it's how good the installer is. I have personally seen people use the top of the line XPEL SunTech paint protection film and the installs not look that good. And I have seen installs done with cheap knockoff film, but these people know how to install, and the installs look really, really good. Now, when we're talking about longevity on the film, that remains to be seen. These big brands, they've been around for a long time, but as far as quality of installation and fitment and how it looks on the vehicle, going by the name of the brand of the film that's on the vehicle, It's not that's not a way I would recommend vetting a paint protection film installer personally.
A single XPEL box or SunTech box there. So they're lying to the customer ahead of time. So that's part of it. So the fourth thing I would say, go into the shop. So I would take your car, drop by there, and have a conversation with them. I would look at their waiting room if they have one. Here at my shop, I don't have one. You walk in my door, you are right in the shop. The funny thing about this, I toured a little shop here a couple months ago now, and you walk into the waiting room and you go, wow, this is a really, really nice place. They've got a little bay over here where they deliver cars. Looks unbelievably nice. And I asked, hey, I'm a detailer. Do you mind if I go check out your shop? You open the door to the shop and you go, whoa, it is trash everywhere. The floors are filthy. The garage door is sitting wide open. That looks like it's been broken for 3 years. You've got paint correction going on over here. Next to it, you've got a guy tinting. And then next to that, you've got another guy doing an interior. And then you've got paint protection film going on over here. That is one of the largest red flags.
100% agree with Coleton on this one as well too. If you're looking for paint protection film shops to do installs for you, go have a look at them. Go walk into their showroom, ask to see their shop, or in Coleton's situation where he doesn't have a showroom, you walk into his shop. I've never been there. I'd love to check it out one day, but you can see that guy takes really, really good care of his surroundings and his work environment, and it's obviously an environment where you would be able to have a successful paint protection film install. And yeah, big red flags are when you walk into a shop and it's dirty and there's garbage everywhere and there's dirty lights and dust on the floor. That's a recipe for disaster when you're doing paint protection film. And there's nothing wrong if a company is going to offer paint protection film installs, window film or window tint installs, ceramic coatings, paint corrections, interior detailing, vehicle signage, and all that type of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, but if the company that you're looking for, if they've got dedicated bays that are sealed off and separated from those other services, that's a good thing to see. But if everything is just out in the open, that's getting a good quality paint protection film install out of that is not going to be very easy.
Have a shop that is clean. So this is for, future installers. Paint protection film, your shop has to be unbelievably clean. Otherwise, you're getting contaminants absolutely everywhere. Now, the other big thing is having a dedicated paint protection film work area. Where you guys actually see me here in my detail shop was supposed to be basically partitioned off. I was going to have a garage door on this wall here, basically where you're looking into. This was going to be my paint protection film area. I built this shop when I was still installing film and decided, I don't think it's really worth it. I don't love the film. So I would say having those special areas for paint protection film, you look at high-end shops, you look at Chicago Auto Pros, you look at PFS out in California, you look at Topaz over in London area. These guys all understand that. They'll still do paint corrections, they'll do detailing, but you're not doing it next to a car where you're putting film on. The problem with this is, think about this, compounding, polishing. If you guys have watched any of my videos, these cars are caked with this white powder. If you're doing that next to a car getting film, where do you think all that's going? Underneath the film. The other thing is, you're washing your cars in the same area, so you're blowing dirt everywhere, you're throwing water on all the cars. These are all considerations that you as viewers need to walk into shops and kind of look at. I would just say one of the biggest things is just, what's your initial impression? Is this shop like, wow, I've never seen a shop this clean? Or is it like, there's trash everywhere, the floors are completely filthy, there's dirt everywhere? That's one of the largest red flags. Now going in and understanding, hey, you're doing this next to a paint correction thing, that may be a little overkill, but I'm telling you, this can make a difference of shops that really pay attention to doing cars well and shops that don't. So one of my last and final is talking about pre-cut and talking about bulk wrapping. There's a huge, huge difference here. So this car over here was done with a pre-cut kit. This is similar to what you see if you're familiar with the Rivian XPEL, basically partnership where they have shops. 4,500 bucks to do an entire car. Insane amount of money to do that. I don't know how they're doing that. They're okay. Whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But pre-cut kits,
I'm looking forward to that video,
are great in certain areas and not as great in other areas. The issue is a company like XPEL, I've seen all their programs, of course I've been with them before, is they're never exactly perfect. And you have to understand how to install a pre-cut kit. It's very different from doing a bulk kit. So if I'm explaining this properly, essentially when you do a pre-cut kit, they are designed to be essentially worked from one area of the car to another area. So typically on like a front bumper, you're going to start from the centermost area where the tow hook is, work your way out. On a bulk install, which is essentially you just take a sheet, you lay it on the car, you cut after, you can start wherever you want. So there's a lot more.
This is what I was talking about earlier in the video when it came to talking about the hood. Bulking, it has its benefits for that exact reason. You don't have to worry about a certain work sequence and how you install and manipulate the film. You just got this big massive sheet of film on the panel, and you just basically, you can start wherever you want really. As long as the film has been stretched out and there's no fingers anywhere, you're good to go. So pros and cons to both. The pros to bulking is obviously you're gonna minimize a lot of the wasted material. So that's good. But definitely pros and cons to both.
More freedom for guys to do bulk wrapping as there is pre-cut. The problem you get into, and this is an early video I did with a Porsche Cayman or Boxster, I don't remember, it doesn't matter now, but somebody did a full bulk wrap on this car and they hand cut everything. The film was so bad that we took it off, every single edge was cut. And this is one of the worst nightmares when doing paint protection film. Having guys understand how to cut on paint is so unbelievably hard. There are guys, of course, like I'm talking about in that top, 5 to 1% of the PPF industry that actually know how to do it. But
personally, I would agree with this, that the best paint protection film installers are when they have spare time on their hands and they've got some plastic or they've got some body panels from vehicles lying around. They're practicing their installs and they're practicing their knife cutting skills. And the best of the best, they'd be able to bulk an entire vehicle and hand trim it without running the risk of having any knife marks through the paint. So yeah, I personally would not trust anybody with a knife on my vehicle who's not at least practicing in their downtime.
I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, installing bulk film, these guys are doing a horrendous job, like absolutely terrible. Cutting on your paint, cutting edges off, it's a nightmare to deal with. So I would ask them, are you doing pre-cut kits or are you doing bulk installs? Now I would say there are pros and cons to both, of course. You're going to get better fitment with a higher end installer doing a bulk wrap with unbelievable knife skills. Now on the other hand, if you have a new shop like this one that did the Kia, I would never let them even touch my car with a knife. That is an absolute no-go. So I'm glad they're actually using pre-cut kits on this. And you can tell by just how things are overlapped and not aligned properly, that's how you can really tell. Whereas you're not ever gonna have those issues on a bulk wrap. So some very big differences there. Now the other thing I would say that you can...
Coleton actually brings up a really good point there, that yeah, with the pre-cut templates, there's issues in this video that you would never have the bulk wrap. So good, kudos to you, Coleton. That you brought up a great point there.
This shop is good or not, have them do a test panel. Like pick one of the most complicated parts. Maybe ask them, hey, I'm looking to do the front end of my car here. Can you show me a mirror? Like get a mirror installed. I want to drive around with it for a week to 2 weeks. Let's see how many edges pop on there. Really good guys are gonna go, yeah, absolutely no problem. Let's throw a piece of film on there. You're not gonna have edges lifting. It's gonna look absolutely perfect.
I think personally, I would wholeheartedly disagree with this. I know he's just kind of like making the point known of, hey, let's test out your install for a couple weeks before we do any more paint protection film on it. A mirror is definitely like one of the hardest things on a vehicle to install, so I wouldn't do a mirror. In situations where I've had customers wonder what the installs are going to look like, I just take the customer out to my vehicle and I show them what my vehicle looks like, and I tell them how many kilometers are on it. Like for example, my Ford F-150, which the truck is fully wrapped, I've got just shy of 60,000 kilometers on it. I don't know what that is in miles, but 60,000 kilometers up here in Canada. And I'll show people what my truck is going to look like, what all my edges look like, what my seams are looking like after these 60,000 kilometers. And I think that right there, for me personally, that's been a really, really good way for me to lock customers down for jobs, just to show them the quality of the work.
Then you're gonna see stuff like this. If this customer would have went in and said, hey, I want my mirror done, let's see how it looks, and the mirror looked like that, you're gonna go, you're not touching the rest of my car. On my way I go to the next shop. So I think test panels are very, very important. Now there's of course gonna be shops out there that may say, you know what, we're not gonna do that because it is more work for them. But in my experience as a professional detailer, I'll spend an hour to get that customer if I really need to, have those conversations with them or do a test spot. When I do paint corrections, somebody may ask me, hey, I don't really understand what this paint correction thing is. I can see a bunch of scratches in there. Are you sure you can get those out? Great, no problem. Let's do a 2x2 section. Let me blow out your expectations. So
from a paint correction standpoint, this is a genius way to get that job, because back when I was doing a lot of paint corrections, I did this as well on a Mercedes, and it was black, and I did a small section on the roof, and it was incredible, the difference. And yeah, it's a really, really good way to get the customer, because now they're just gonna be focused on that one area that looks absolutely perfect, so they're gonna want to pull the trigger and get the rest of the vehicle done. So Coleton, this is a good way to get customers. I like that.
Those are a few things you can do there. So I hope this gave you guys some insight on some directions you can take, some actions, some tips and tricks you can figure out if a shop is good. Now, let's say you go into a shop and you have a poor experience. Maybe they have an installer that had an off day and they just did terrible. Hopefully you can take your car back and say, listen, I'm not happy with this. Can you fix this? Now, most good PPF shops will actually ask you to come back in a week to 2 weeks to check on the paint protection film, make sure edges are laying down properly, because there always are some things that, you know, it looks perfect here in the shop, the car goes outside, it heats up in the day, cools down at night, and you start to get some lifting here and there. I can accept that, but a car that looks like this, there's not much you can do. This car really needs to get fully redone. All of these edges, I don't know what happened to this car. The car came in, it had water spots all over it. They didn't wipe down any of the PPF. The car was absolutely filthy. It was just like, how does this car leave the shop like that? So I would say those are some things you really need to look out for. Now, with these processes, are you guaranteed to have a good job? Absolutely not. Now, I would say it's a very complicated process, because I think a lot of times folks go into paint protection film expecting it to look absolutely perfect. And in reality, even the top end guys, this is a very hands-on job that is, there's a lot of human error involved, and it is one of the most complicated things to do on vehicles. Guys that can throw down film like it is nothing with their eyes closed, like, it blows me away. They're truly, truly impressive in their craft. And I think it's just building those relationships and understanding, does this shop actually care? I mean, again, going back to that, what does their shop look like? If their shop's filthy, has dirt all over the floor, has a bunch of, you know, crap laying around, I don't think they're gonna take a lot of pride in your vehicle. You're another customer to them. They're gonna throw film on there, send you on your way, see you later. So I think there's a lot of things you can do as a customer to figure out, hey, is this going to be a good install? So hopefully this helped you guys. I know this is a complicated process and it's probably very frustrating for a lot of shops out there, but this is the reality of what I see. This is one of my biggest negatives towards paint protection film. There's quite literally one, maybe two installers in the state of Colorado that I would send one of my cars to, let alone one of my customers. There's a lot of shops out there that do great stuff, but I haven't been to there. I haven't seen their cars in person. That's one of the biggest things. That's another thing that I'm just thinking about. You can ask to go look at cars that are sitting in the shop. If they're a shop that does quite high volume, it's very easy to say, hey, I want to see a car you're working on. Go watch them for a few minutes, how they install film. Now, do I expect you to know what they're doing? No, but do your research on it. Look at edges, look at the marks in here. It's very, very important. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you have any comments, of course, leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps us out, creates more content, and has a broader reach out there. So thanks so much for watching another out of spec detailing video. We'll see you in the next one soon. Bye-bye.
So yeah, that's gonna kind of end it. I guess my final thoughts and what I would add to what Coleton was saying, when you're inspecting other shops, or you're interviewing other shops, like you could say, is what are people saying about them on Google? What kind of Google reviews do they have? What I like to do when I'm vetting up any business that I'm looking to do business with, whether it's business to business or if I'm going to be a consumer of that business, is one thing I like to do is go to their Google reviews, and I like to look at the most recent review and their lowest review. And then I like to see how the company has handled those reviews. How they handle negative reviews says a lot about the company, and a big thing that could go a long way in gaining trust with a paint protection film installer is, let's say you bring your vehicle to their shop and you get a quote, you like the price, and you come down to like setting a date and time to do the job and how long it's going to take. What is their follow-up system like with you? Are they asking to see your vehicle in a week for an inspection wash, like Coleton said, to go around, check out all the edges to make sure all the edges are down, pop any remaining moisture or air bubbles that may have been left behind? If they're not doing that and they're just slapping film on, sending you out the door and wishing you all the best, that is a red flag. Are they giving you any wash instructions? Paint protection film, it needs to be washed a certain way, because you have live edges, and then you have edges where you wrap the film around, and you have seams. They need to also teach you how to wash the vehicle as well too. The thing with paint protection film and ceramic coatings is it doesn't actually make your life easier as far as minimizing the amount of work you need to do with it. You actually have to do more work with it. Ceramic coatings, you have to wash your vehicle more frequently, and you have to take better care of your vehicle while you wash it, in my opinion. That's just my opinion living up here in Canada. That's what I've noticed with my own vehicles. And with paint protection film, you need to know how to wash it, how to hold the pressure washer wand, and how far to stay away from the vehicle. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. It's the first time I've ever done a reaction video. If you guys want to see me do more, and if you guys want to see me react to other videos, leave some links and let me know in the description of this video. And if you guys enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. And if you want to watch more, click right over here, and we'll see you guys in the next video.